Welcome to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication Podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlow. Here on the Service Syndication Real Estate Podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, and capital raisers in the world, where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindsets, and skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me Mr. Sam Sharp, who is a top-notch mortgage broker. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of this interview, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Send it to someone that will get some great value out of this interview. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, and share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who shared this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, I have with me Mr. Sam Sharp. He is the Executive Vice President of National Sales at Guaranteed Rate and one of the nation's most trusted mortgage professionals. Once hesitant to enter the industry, Sam quickly rose to become Illinois' top purchase producer for 3 consecutive years, helping more people buy homes in the state than any other loan officer. Known for his consultative approach, Sam specializes in guiding clients through the lending process, often rescuing deals that other lenders couldn't close. His commitment to transparency, reliability, and treating every client with equal respect has earned him lasting relationships and widespread praise. Beyond business, Sam gives back through humble design and organization that furnishes homes for families overcoming homelessness. A devoted husband and father, Sam believes in building both strong families and strong communities, one home at a time. All right. Well, first off, welcome, Sam. And secondly, if you could, please give our listeners a bit of your backstory, like where you grew up, how was your upbringing, and what in your past shifted your mindset into becoming the person you are today.
Hello, Cedric. Thanks for having me. First and foremost, I appreciate the consideration, and hello to your listeners. Hopefully, you're listening to your introduction. I really hope that I can bring something of value today, and I hope I can live up to that description because wow, I sound pretty amazing. It's it's amazing what we write in our bios, and I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that it is interesting when you hear it from this side of the table.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, so I've been in the mortgage lending business now for 23 years. I am in Chicago, just outside of Chicago now, and originally grew up in Colorado. So I grew up and I started to my whole life. So when I was 12 years old, I was this kid that you would find carrying around a pair of drumsticks in his back pocket everywhere I went. You know, my shirts had drum logos across it, Yamahas across here, everything you could think of, just to try and hope and beg that someone would bring it up so that I could talk about it, because my whole life revolved around music. It's what I did, and it quickly became my identity. It was everything that I my social scene, my interests, my career. That's what I did. I ended up moving towards a career in music. So that's what brought me to Chicago. I was playing with a group in Colorado. This was now fast forward up into college, which many years past that 12-year-old boy running around with the sticks in his pocket. And I was touring with the group. The group was doing very well, successful, and we wanted to find a different home base because, ironically, at the time, Denver wasn't the best scene for music as far as we didn't feel the support from the community for musicians. We were doing well there, but we felt like we needed a more serious platform for a city, and that brought us to Chicago. I say ironically because now things have turned around. Denver's quite the place for the music industry. But so I moved here to play music, be a professional musician, and did that successfully for quite some time. But at one point, unfortunately, I broke my hand and I had to cancel my upcoming tour, which was basically 2 tours in a 7-month period. And although I thought I was a rock star, my bank account said otherwise. And I found myself in a very bad position very quickly. I grew up very poor, no family to turn to, nothing of that nature. And I had to figure something out. Fortunately, I had one of my best friends, business partners to this day, who had started a mortgage company. He was like, listen, I think you would be good at this. You should try it. To which I said, absolutely not. That's a horrible idea. I'm not doing this. Backstory, I went to school for originally for music, and I switched from music to psychology. So I never had a background in financing. It wasn't something that I had ever studied. I actually didn't even realize when I got into the mortgage industry, I wasn't able to make the connection at that time between when I was growing up and we'd lost our house and it was foreclosed on and I had to go live with my grandparents or my grandmother. I didn't even realize the correlation between the two until I was already involved in the industry much further along. But to make it a little quicker, fortunately, something clicked for me. I ended up taking to it. I was starving. I needed to make something work. I made it work. And since then, I've built an incredible career that has led me to be one of the top producers in our industry for the majority of the 23 years that I've been doing this.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, the one thing that I can definitely say is your bank account is definitely the differentiator that lets you know, okay, it tells the tale. It really does, it sets you straight on, where you're at. And in your case, it lets you know that, hey, you're not a rock star, even though you're doing all this touring and all of that. But, but hey, you've turned it around. That's awesome. So, well, Sam, you started your career in the mortgage industry during a challenging time in your life. Can you share that transition and how it shaped your work ethic and perspective on real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Right place, right time, so to speak, even though it wouldn't seem like that. When I got in the industry, it was the end of 2001. I was cold calling people to try and get them to refinance to all-time low interest rates of 8%, which was not great. And it was difficult. Again, I went from being on a tour bus to now calling people to try and beg for business. It was very humbling, and it took a while to get over that call reluctance. Moving through into the next year, into 2002, the interest rates had dropped down to 6%. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, coming off, at the time of recording this, it's been obviously a few years since the pandemic, but a lot of people focus on interest rates in the 2s, 3% range, saying, wow, this is the biggest upheaval in the industry that we've ever seen. They're not wrong. It was iconic, but at the same time, the most origination in lending was at that time in 2002, 2003, like going through when interest rates went from that 8% down to 6%. It was actually a larger amount of volume that had been tackled because, well, if you're looking in online or you're watching memes and you're looking at reels, you'll see people always talk about, oh, well, when I bought a home, interest rates were 14%, and this is how this goes, right? There's this big argument between generations. That was the cusp of what we were coming off of, right? Interest rates had hit 6%, and there was still a massive amount of people that were at much higher interest rates. Now, the problem and the challenge, which is weird when I say right place, right time, is that rates drop. The people that are at the company that I'm working at are busy. Like, they're so busy. I've got no one to call. I've got no database. I've got no one out there. And as I talk to the people who have been in the industry, I'm like, what are you doing? And they're just like, well, we're calling all of our past clients to get them to refinance. And I was like, okay, well, I can't do that. All I have are these really, really, really bad leads that I had to try and call. They looked like the phone book, same type, print, size, The only difference between the phone book and these lead sheets is that we knew at some point in time these people had a mortgage. Didn't mean they still did. Didn't mean that they could qualify or even were interested in talking. So it was just terrible. But that was my aha moment, because when people said, we're refinancing our past clients, I started thinking, like, wait, so if I help someone buy a home, I would be able to generate that relationship. I'm helping them and I'm getting paid. Fast forward, when rates go down, well, now I can refinance them and I get paid again. So I can keep generating business off of this one relationship that I've formed. And that was where things clicked. Everyone in the industry was running around getting refinances. Now, I said that was one of the busiest times for refinancing volume. I was not one of the people doing that. I didn't have anyone to refinance. And of course, there were a few here and there that I was able to grab. But instead, what I did is I started focusing on purchase business. And it was great timing because all the other mortgage lenders in the industry, well, they weren't doing that. So I went out. I remember I went to my first closing. I'll always remember my first purchase closing that I had. And the owner of the company at the time was like, "What are you doing? Why are you going to the closing?" I was like, "Well," I said, there's 5 people in that room that could be a new relationship for business. I've got 2 real estate agents that I don't know. There are 2 attorneys, because Illinois is an attorney state. Like, I've got a title agent there. I'm like, these are all people who are interacting with other people on a daily basis that are looking to buy, sell, or refinance a home. I'm like, why would I not put myself in that room? As long as I do a good job and I show up, I'm like, this should be very good. He was just, he said, "You don't know what you're doing. Just shut up and get back and get on the phones." And it was funny. Fortunately for me, I grew up in a different world where negative reinforcement was something that not that I love it, but I had a chip on my shoulder and I took to it. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to show you. I'll show you what I know." Well, fast forward, that's what was the catalyst for my business. I started going to these closings, started meeting people. I looked at every opportunity. And the one thing that I thought about is I realized, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to work with these people, I have to do a really good job. It doesn't matter what this pays. I'm not focusing on the money, which is hard to say because I was eating once a day, literally once a day. I can tell you pancake mix and and some syrup can last you a week. A jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread. This is my staple diet. This is what I was eating. And I was just like, all right, I've got to, even though I need the money, I need to focus on the long game here. So I went out of my way to learn everything I could about the business and just to do a really good job. And as I started to interact with these agents and with people that were out there, what I would tell them, I said, listen, let me know if you have anything that doesn't work. If you've got a deal that fell apart, if you're in a position where you need someone to put a different pair of eyes on this, or maybe someone who's more experienced, which is hilarious because I am not that, at least at that time. I just said, give me a shot. Let me take a look at it before you let this deal die. And that worked. That worked really well because with that chip on my shoulder, as well as, although no background of studying finance, I was always really good at math. I've always really been into games and puzzles and figuring things out. I love a challenge. I won't let something go. Once I put my teeth in there, I'm just not going to get out of it. And it worked out really well. I just go through the guidelines, find different investors, someone who could get that deal done. And that built the catalyst. Now, I will tell you, one of the reasons why I remember that first deal that I ever closed, well, I've right now have in process 2 deals for 2 of the family members, which will mark our 47th and 48th closing transaction together. There are 9 siblings. I have since gone on and I have financed the daughter of the person who was my first purchase closing. So and I used to have, I'm not spring chicken, but I'm not that old. And it just sounds weird, but I mean, the reality is that she was a teenager when I had helped them. Now she's older and she's, they were getting married, her husband were getting married, and I'm the go-to for the family. So it's been an amazing ride to just be fortunate enough to understand that there was a better way to do things and to try and do a good job. And it's led me to a position now where, that business grows and grows as much as I want. I can do as much business as I would like to do.
Right. Yeah. That's a full circle moment right there. Man, you've helped finance the daughter's home, and from that first one, and as they say, you never forget your first,
Right.
So,
I wonder if that's what they were talking about.
I'm almost certain that's what they were talking about.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you think makes the mortgage business such a powerful gateway into understanding real estate investing?
Well, I mean, it's the money. Real estate investing is about opportunity, leverage, creating a position where you can invest and build for your financial freedom, is what people call it. Although any of us in this industry know there's no freedom in it, so to speak. It's a
Right.
lot of hard work. But I mean, ultimately, when people are looking to invest in real estate, they are going to want to borrow money. They're using to leverage that position and putting yourself in a position where you understand how to get that money and how to figure out how to get the best, how to help people understand that financially and how to leverage that cash, position that cash, save money. Because I mean, it's important to understand when it comes to money. I think it's important to know how to make it, how to invest it, and then how to protect it, right? And then of course how to give it away because you got to help others, support others. But I think that it makes it that natural bridge to investment when it comes to real estate. I mean, it was in a perfect place. I mean, it's
Mhm.
very much like if I was a contractor and I became a builder, right? If I was someone who put themselves as a journeyman and then I learned how to build the house from the ground up, and now I could be one of the more successful builders in the area. It's just really that jump, that springboard.
Right. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, you've been Illinois' top purchase producer multiple years. What habits or systems do you credit for sustaining that level of success?
I think that it's just an unhealthy obsession, and unfortunately, which I'm dealing with now, I'm finding better ways to do that. But as I mentioned before, once I sink my teeth in, I won't let go. So I really felt like I had something to prove growing up. Again, to say I came from meager beginnings is putting it lightly. And
Mhm.
being in a position where, unfortunately, I just felt like I always had something to prove, and I made this focus on if I could be successful, I could tune out some of that noise, some of the narratives that were created for me as a kid, things that I was led to believe and told about myself and my family.
Mhm.
And that chip and just this what it turned into an interesting perspective on my own self-worth pushed me harder and harder and harder. I just and I'll be honest, once you get a taste of money, you want more. Like I know everyone just talks about this is an amazing opportunity. I'm helping people, and yes, that is part of it. But let's make no mistake, this isn't philanthropic. We are in a position where we want to make money based off what we're doing. And when I understood that this was a commission-driven industry, it doesn't mean
Mhm.
you can't be honorable and do a great job. But if you do a great job and you focus on that, you're going to be rewarded for the time that you put into it. So I think that it was that combination of just wanting to prove myself and thinking this was a great way to do it, along with getting a taste of this financial, drug that I could have only dreamed of as a kid, instead of, and it has its downfalls, but it's one of those things when you go from being in a position where you had one pair of pants to wear, that was a second generation hand me down from someone who what you weren't even related to, and
Mhm.
you're in a position now where you can slowly work towards buying a home, buying a fancy car, buying all these things, and that combination of those addictions, just ego driven, just led me to push, 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 push. Fortunately, I've been able to maintain strong values. I love people. I think this coming from being a musician, one of those things that I truly do love people. I find them I just conversations, interaction, helping people. I always like to help people. I'm highly empathetic, so I've been able to control that into a position now where I've been able to, I guess, let's just say this: I don't live outside my means. I never have. I've done some things and bought some nice things, but at the same time, this drive and this push has created me to where I want it to be the best. I want it to be number one.
Yeah, absolutely. That chip and that tenacity to prove others wrong, and a lot of times it's proving yourself right. It's not necessarily proving anyone else wrong. It's proving
Yeah.
yourself right that you have the right stuff to make it in this world, regardless of what others have said. So I definitely get it. So for someone new to real estate investing, what's the most important thing they should understand about financing options?
I think that if you're new to investing, then like many other endeavors, start with the basics, get an understanding of what is financing, what is a mortgage, what are some of the pitfalls. Tune into podcasts, listen, join Cedric, listen to your show, go on Bigger Pockets, go on these so many forums. You know, one of the most amazing things right now is that we have university level educations for free out there. You can find so much information. So if you're going to get involved, get educated, learn what you need to know, because you don't know what you don't know. And until you start to explore that, you're not going to have a strong understanding of how you're going to play this forward. So if I was new to that and I want to understand investing and financing, I'm going to start following financial podcasts. I will say that I think it would be important that you branch out. So learn about commercial financing, learn about residential financing, learn about private capital, flip the script, learn about taxes, learn about how to protect your money, learn about the strategies so that you put a game plan in place. How are you going to hold your real estate? There's so many different angles on this that even as I describe it right now, it sounds overwhelming. It sounds like it's just too much. So start with something basic, understand that, and then make yourself a chart, right? And forgive me, because this is, I'm making this up on the spot, but I think it could be a good idea.
Yeah.
Take the different avenues of financing. Think about borrowing money and repaying money. Now think about tax strategies, right? And this is keeping your money, protecting your money. And then think about the investment side of your money. And go through and take one basic principle from each one of those avenues and start there. Learn that basic principle and then move next in line and move a basic principle about taxes, and then move on and make a basic principle about investing, and then maybe one about title and ownership. So take a little bit of the basics for each one, because as you start to go, they're going to correlate, they're going to come together. And the reality is, once you open the floodgates, so many things are going to start coming at you. You're going to find your interest, but look at what sparks you, and what, as you start to go through and understand and learn more, there's going to be an itch. Like, that's it. That's just how we are as human beings. You're going to spend more time thinking about one avenue within all of this and everything that you're understanding. What are you thinking about, right? What's keeping you up at night? Or what do you wake up thinking? What do you get excited about? What do you want to do? Now, go find other people who are successful doing that, whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's going through videos, whatever avenue you can, find some people who are doing that, exactly what you're doing. Because maybe maybe you're a person who all of a sudden you really like you go completely different direction. You started learning about financing and the best way to secure money, but really all you can think about is how to design homes. Like, wow, why would they put that kitchen there? That's ridiculous. If you moved it over here, you could have increased your square footage. Like, all of a sudden you find this obsession on something that is a really good angle. I was just listening to a podcast, and there was a clip. We're talking about not creating the market. It was more so finding what you're interested in and finding a market. There was a market for something, right? But going through and finding something that you're knowledgeable about, interested in, and then bringing that to the market, not the ideas or the product. So as you find this inspiration, the things that you're really into within the different avenues of financing, different avenues of investing, then gravitate towards what you like, because then you're going to go further with it. But don't lose that roadmap you had in the beginning of following through the basics, because you're going to want to know some of those other avenues.
Right. All right. So Sam, you're known for saving deals that other lenders couldn't close. Can you walk us through what goes wrong in those situations and how investors can prepare to avoid some of those?
Yeah, I think that it's the person borrowing the money, or it's the property they're buying usually, right? And there can be different problems on both sides of that. So when I would look at a deal, or when you're looking at something, you want to figure out first and foremost, what's the issue? What's the concern? What's the ask? One of the best things about identifying a problem is now you know what your focus is and how you're trying to fix it, right? So it's much easier. So if, for example, let's say house hacking is big, right? So I work in the residential mortgage space. House hacking is something that a lot of people will look at as ways to start as a gateway. It's gateway investing, really, a lot of times, because you're going to live in a home and rent out other units or rooms and put yourself in a position where you're already investing and generating revenue. Well, from the financing perspective, there was a lot of problems where if you were buying Chicago, for example, it's one of the markets where you have a lot of properties that have ADUs. Now, this isn't like California where you've got someone who built a tiny home in the backyard. This is a beautiful gray stone building that has 3 units in it, but technically only 2 of those are legal units. There was an in-law apartment. These are arrangements. Well, that's a problem for financing depending on the loan. So in this example, we identify the problem. Someone comes to me and says, hey, we can't get a loan on this property. Why? Oh, because there's a kitchen in the basement. So there's tenants living there. And we're in a position where they won't finance that. They want me to rip out the kitchen. And that's an example of where the property is the problem, not the client. Okay. So you're in a position from there, we have to figure it out. Okay, well, how do we work through that? Do we have to rip the kitchen out? What are we doing? And then you find through lending guidelines on how that works. I've been very successful with changing those guidelines, actually, helping and working directly through my company and the heads of our collateral development, and then with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac particularly in this case, and changing those guidelines. So in this example, I identified the problem. The problem is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac didn't want to give someone money unless they dealt with this. This was a big portion of business that I was handling. It was also a huge opportunity to help people. So I dug my heels in, we worked together, and we actually got the guidelines changed with Freddie Mac, where they would allow to finance these deals without removing the kitchens, as long as it wasn't illegal, as long as there wasn't there wasn't any type of ordinance that stated that this property could not exist, which wasn't the case in Chicago. So identify the problem first, right? Flip side of that, maybe you find someone, they come back to you, people bring me a deal and say, hey, this client was trying to buy, they don't have enough money down, their credit's terrible. They were using FHA financing, but it won't work because they already have an FHA loan. This is a real example.
Okay.
Very easy for me to look at that and say, okay, so you have an FHA loan, you bought this property 5 years ago. Yeah, I'm like, okay. I hear the baby in the background. I hear a baby there. There's a baby. They've already apologized, which I've told them not to. I have 2 small kids. I love kids now.
Right.
So I know that one of the guidelines that you can use with FHA is that you can get another FHA loan if you have an increase in your family status. So very quickly I said, listen, you bought that 5 years ago with the FHA loan? They said, yeah. I said, I hear a baby. Like, it sounds like your family has grown since you purchased that property. And they were like, yeah, this is number 3. It's like, great, no problem. We can use an FHA loan again because you have an increase in family status. So in this case, it was the clients. The property wasn't the issue. And really, it wasn't the clients. It was the lender. The lender just didn't understand this and didn't know these guidelines. I did. That's the best thing about trying to figure something out. Once you figure it out, that's in the bag, right? That's in your bag of tricks. Now I know very quickly how someone comes to me and I can give them the answer to what they need. So identify the problem. Is it within the client? Is it within the property? And then what are your ways to get around it?
Okay. You just mentioned credit. So what role does credit score really play for investors, and how can someone position themselves financially to get the best terms?
The better the credit, the better the terms, right? So credit in itself is a numerical representation of your ability to borrow money and pay it back. So you want to be in a position where ultimately focus on your credit. Think of it like your word. People always say, my word is all I have. If I don't live up to my word, then what good am I? Well, your credit is a version of your word. Make sure that you're in a position where you've shown that if I lend you money, you're going to give it back. The more desirable, the better ability you have to have a higher credit score, chances are that means you're going to have, now in the residential world, that's going to mean you're going to have better interest rate, right? More likelihood of getting your loan approved. I will say in the commercial side of things, it's more about the property than it is about your personal credit. But let's take a step back to what I said before when I was talking about the beginning of financing. As you're learning about the basics, you're learning about different loans, conventional, you're learning about commercial financing, hard money loans. So when you think about it, if you're in a position where you've got a really good opportunity to borrow money and this deal works, and the person who's lending the money who has more, let's just say, favorable terms, well, even though maybe it's a commercial transaction, they still might be looking for character. And I think that your credit is a representation of that. You show someone, hey, this is a great deal, so we want, and say, yeah, that deal looks really good, but you don't, because there's still that management, on how that goes. People don't focus on the idea of, even though a deal looks really good, if the person who's managing it isn't, then that's going to be a problem, right? You can have the fastest car on the road, on the racetrack, but if you don't know how to drive it, you're going into the wall. So your credit is that representation of your character. So what I say is that start in that beginning of basics, add to that little panel, credit, understanding your credit, build your credit, make sure that you're in a position where you can go through and you can have a better understanding of how to control your credit and how to have a better reflected credit score so that your character comes across stronger.
Okay.
And let's face it, in the residential financing world, it's more than character. Your credit score is going to determine your interest rate. It's going to determine the type of loan you can get. It's going to determine your closing costs. It's going to determine if you can even get a loan or not.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So credit is definitely king in the residential space.
It's credit, income, and assets. Those are the main three things that go into the ability to get a loan, right? Someone wants to show that you've got the credibility. They want to show that you have the ability to repay the loan, and then they want to show that you have the money to close. Right? That's what we're looking at. And of course, there's different ways to go with that, but those are the main three focus points on what control your ability to borrow money and what that looks like as far as the terms.
Love it. So you've seen multiple market cycles, especially starting since 2001. What patterns do you look for to signal that opportunities for investors? What patterns do you look for that signal opportunities for investors?
I think that you want to focus on what's happening within the economics of the area, right? So look out for what's the opportunity cost, I guess, right? So for example, some people will be drawn to an area that's appreciating rapidly. If you looking at this right now, there's a lot of people who moved to markets like Austin and moved over into parts of Florida, Colorado. These are states that right now have the highest levels of inventory and the declining values. Really, it's just because so many people moved there so quickly. They went and they looked at an investment and they said, oh, wow, if I buy this now, I can make money quick. So first and foremost, when you're looking for the opportunities, what is the opportunity? What are you trying to do? Are you going to fix and flip? Are you going to try to hold the money? Are you hold for long-term rentals, Airbnb? Okay, so you want to look for opportunities. Let's say it's Airbnb. Well, what are your resources? Are you using AirDNA? Do you know anything about that market and what that short-term market rental opportunity looks like? Identify, are you in a position where you understand what the rules and regulations are? Learn a little bit about the area where you're investing. If you're crossing state lines, then you better know what's going on in that state and what's happening, because there's some attractive opportunities out there that may come at a higher cost that you weren't aware of. For example, you could find a great property to invest in California, and then you find out you can't get insurance because there's no homeowners insurance. You can't go into Florida and you can't get insurance on the property. What does that do you when your lender's telling you that they're going to force temporary coverage on you at triple the value of what you were paying, and now your cost just went through the roof? So when you're looking for opportunity, I look for up till this point, my investment strategy has been based off renting properties, holding them for the long game, right? My goal was I made a goal that I've since deviated from, but the idea was I was going to buy one property every year for 30 years. These are all multi-units. And then I would put them on 30-year fixed mortgages. And then fast forward 30 years, every year I'd have one property paid off. It would be free and clear while generating revenue. So I'd have an appreciating asset that was generating revenue, and that was my retirement plan. That's exactly what I moved forward. I didn't get further in the 7 properties, multi-units, so more doors than that. But the opportunity for me when I was doing this was the idea of what this looked like in the future. So I would buy these multi-units that were three flat buildings, and I would be breaking even. So I'd rent it out. The rent would pay for all my expenses, taxes, insurance, everything. And from a cash flow perspective, that wasn't good. Like, I have other investors, very respectable, like friends of mine, people who I respect, and they're like, that's a bad deal. You shouldn't buy that deal because it's just not cash flowing. If you're not cash flowing, what's the point? You're wasting your money. Well, for me, I mentioned opportunity cost before.
Right.
For me, the opportunity cost was too high at the time to focus on finding a better deal, so to speak, because remember my obsession in the lending industry. I'm generating money. Like, I did not have a cash flow problem. I had a cash problem. I had too much cash. I needed somewhere to put it. and I didn't know enough about investing at the time. Unfortunately, people weren't telling me to throw my money into an index fund, and I wasn't learning about those things. Things are different now. But the opportunity for me was like, well, this isn't costing me anything. I'm taking this money out of the bank where it's making me nothing, and I'm gonna have the opportunity where these people are gonna pay off my mortgage. Now, I will tell you that's worked out wonderfully because those properties are worth triple what I paid for them. They are. I actually changed my strategy. I ended up financing them all on 15-year loans, not on 30-year fixed. So I was breaking even on 15-year loans. So now those properties are all almost paid off. I own them free and clear, and I'm making multiple six figures in rents from these properties.
Nice.
Now, yeah, that didn't cash flow back then, but I'll tell you what, it looks really, really good now. So your opportunity is going to be different. For me, my opportunity was that I needed to invest my cash while not letting that disrupt my ability to continue focusing on what was generating my cash flow when that was my job. So when you're looking at your opportunity, identify what's your commitment, what's your time, what are you looking to get out of this? If you're flip the script, someone who maybe you're on the other side, you have a problem with cash flow, you need to make more money. Well, now your opportunity is going to look different. You're going to have to look for a property that you can go and get involved with where you can generate that cash flow, and then start to figure out how are you going to do that. I mean, we were talking earlier, you mentioned pulling up carpet, right?
Yep.
You're not afraid to roll up your sleeves. Well, is that the opportunity? Is that a property you found that needs some work, needs some renovation, and you can save on the demo? Things like that. So understand, what are you willing to do and what do you want to get? Everyone always says, what's your why? So tough, such a tough thing to ask people, but at the same time, think about it. What is identify your opportunity based off what you're trying to get out of it, and then from there figure out what's the best way to capitalize on that, right? How are you gonna spend the least amount of money getting the most out of it?
Okay. Now, why is it important for investors to have a team that includes a lender they can trust, such as yourself?
Well, because you need to be able to focus on what's your role in this position, right? Think about a watch, right? You've got a watch, and a lot of people are attracted to the way they look, right? I guess people like Rolexes for status symbols, and most watches, they have these status symbols. When you just think about a timepiece and what it does, I mean, what's the most important part of the watch? All of them, because it doesn't work without it, right? If you're in this metaphor, the hands of the watch, well, then you need to be the best damn hands that you can be. Right. And you need to make sure that the gears inside are working properly. Well, your lender it's part of that picture, right? It's part of that watch. And there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How, which I highly recommend, along with any of Dan Sullivan's books. And Who Not How talks about, finding people who already have that university level of education of the do's and the don'ts and have learned from their mistakes, and being able to let the people focus on something that they're ultimately going to be better at. So don't just find a lender, find someone who's going to be a better lender than you could be yourself. Now, remember when I was saying earlier about, like, if that's what's scratching, that's the itch you got to scratch, then maybe you don't. Maybe you are the lender and you're going to figure that out, but then your rest of your team is going to have to be there. And in this example, you understand that the importance of the lender would be yourself, is understanding someone who's going to find you the best way to get that money, the best way to manage that money, and the best way to ensure that financially you're in a better position.
Okay. Right. So again, I know you deal with investors. So can you share a story of a client who started with, say, one property and grew into a significant portfolio, and what financing strategies helped them get there?
Yeah. I actually can think of someone right out of the gate. He was really, really great guy, shares the same name as me. His name's Sam as well. And when he had approached me, he was talking about buying these multifamily properties. He wanted a house hack. This is a decade ago now.
Okay.
And his goal was not, at the time, wasn't to become like this mogul of owning 100 doors, right? That's the fun part. Everyone wants the victory lap. No one understands what it takes to get there and what you're doing. He did. He wasn't going there. He said, listen, he didn't have a lot of money to invest. He was like, I need to get into a place I can build my capital from now. I'm going to improve those properties. So we looked at his strategy at the time, and using residential financing, there were a couple different loan options that would allow him to use a low down payment. So at the time when I started working with him, there was a conventional loan product. You could put 5% down. There were no income restrictions. So you could buy this property, put 5% down, leverage your cash, and get better terms. He was initially gung-ho on using FHA because he didn't understand he could use this product. He's like, oh, I'm going to use an FHA loan because I want to put 3.5% down. And in his mind, he's like, 3.5% down is better than 5% down. Why would I want to do 5% down? I'm going to do 3.5% down.
Right.
For me, I'm looking at it and said, okay, Sam, and I mean him, not me. I said, your goal that you've explained to me is to purchase 3 properties over the next 10 years. So you're going to build these properties and you're going to work on that. I said that if you use that FHA loan up front, you don't have that bullet in the chamber, so to speak. Like now you're in a position where you're not leveraging your cash. At the time, the conventional loan, you could have up to 2 properties and use this product. Okay. And it's changed. Guidelines have changed since then. At one time, it was only 1 property, 2. But the problem was that his strategy was going to put him in a place where he could use an FHA loan. He could have family grow and use another FHA loan. But now he can't use that other loan program for his 3rd property because he doesn't meet the guidelines. So when I started talking to him about the strategy, I said, listen, we're going to use this program because then you're still going to have these options fast forward to buy your other 2 properties with lower down payments. He listened. We financed the property. He's up to 5 now. He didn't stick with 3. He kept building because, we got fortunate during the pandemic, which is a weird statement to say, but his value went up tremendously. So he had a lot of equity in his property. So what did we do? We borrowed the equity out of that property for a down payment on the next property. He was able to get his capital back because he invested, leveraged his cash, used as little down upfront as possible. Still made sense financially. Now, I tell you, he rolled up his sleeves. He did a lot of work on these properties. He self-managed. There were in areas that maybe some other people didn't want to invest in. He made it work, and he followed through the strategy. He then used the equity in that property to buy the next property. I know a lot of people talk about this, or they talk about the BRRRR method and different things.
Right.
I wished it was as easy as saying like, oh, follow that method. This will work for you every time. It depends on your market, depends on where you're at and what's going on. It may or may not work. But so the success story here is that we were able to talk about what his long-term goals were, identify how he was going to be able to leverage his cash continuously instead of being in a position where had he not taken that approach up front, then he needed a larger down payment to buy that 2nd property. And if he wasn't able to do that, if he wasn't able to move on, he wouldn't have had that jump in equity on all of his properties that then allowed him to leverage more cash fast forward. And now since then, he's moved on his last properties. He's moved on to bigger multi-units, 10-unit, 10+ commercial properties. But he's only able to do that because he has the equity from the other properties that he bought.
Absolutely. Yeah, that works. That cash out refi definitely works. But you put him on the right trajectory to get to where he's at now. So, Sam, your work with Humble Design shows a strong commitment to community. Why do you feel the need to do that?
As I mentioned before, I grew up very poor, right? I don't have a lot of family. It's something that when you see the impact and you feel that impact, I think that it can tap into things personally that make me feel better. They make me understand. When I first worked with Humble Design, there was, at the time what we were doing is we would do what's called a day of service. So you go there and you help out. And essentially what Humble Design does is they go through and they provide the furnishings for newly rehabilitated people off the streets, right? They're trying to end homelessness. And through other organizations, Catholic Charities, some of these other organizations, they would get housing, right? So someone would have an apartment to live in, but they'd have nothing. So I remember I showed up to my first gig and I'm there to help. I'm just there to carry things in. We're gonna set up beds. We're gonna give them stuff. Humble Design takes donations. So they'll take donations of furniture and then they'll furnish these homes. I don't want to get the statistics wrong, but it's a very large number of the people who are in a position that come from living off the streets and then are giving these types of resources and amenities. They stay off the streets because it's really hard, right? You come in, you're living on the streets, you have nothing. You move into this place, you have nothing. That's really hard to live. It's really hard to try and build a successful life. So they come through and they help people with this. So I'm helping them. We're loading in. I remember I walked in and it looked like I don't know, it's just like a bag. There was a bag on the floor with couple pieces of clothing, and there was a towel in one of the bedrooms. And I was asking him, I said, "Oh, so did you guys have a crew come in before and clear everything out before we're moving everything in?" And she said, the lady who was Kristen, who was running the organization, she said, "No, this is all they have. This is it. This is what we're doing." And she picked up the towel and she said, "Meat blanket towel." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So this lady had 2 small children, and they had to use their towel as their blanket at night to sleep, as well as their towel to shower. And sorry, it's hard. And if you have kids, see those things.
Right.
Well, it answers itself. You see that,
Yes.
you understand it, and that was it. From there, I knew that this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to help, and I've been that kid.
Yeah, I think it takes a person like yourself, a person like me, who have lived a certain life to feel the need to give back to those less fortunate. And I totally get it.
For sure.
Yeah,
It's important. I mean, otherwise, what's the point?
Well,
Psychologically, they say once you make a certain amount of money and you do something, you're never any happier doing anything. And actually, arguably, you're less happy when you're in service to others, service to syndication. When you're in the service to others, you truly start to understand what else is out there and what's more important.
That's right. It's a deeper self by giving back. Well, Sam, it's been a blast having you as our guest today. And as we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
I appreciate that. And thank you for having me. You can find me on Instagram, samsharp_gr. YouTube, I've got a YouTube channel that I've started, so please check it out. I need help. And I share a lot of long form on investment tips and strategies, ways to help people in all, whether you're buying your first home or you're looking to invest in the future. And then, of course, if you just do a quick Google search for Sam Sharp and mortgage, you will find me come up very quickly. So, please reach out. And if anyone ever has questions or anything, I'm always happy to help and do what I can.
Awesome. Sam, again, I want to thank you for your time today and all the wisdom you have provided to my listeners. It's greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning into the Syndication Real Estate Podcast, where we want to add value to you in your investing business. Please tune into our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic real estate professional. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.